I'm Zach Will, and I'm a security analyst. Security analyst is the front line of defense in the cybersecurity world. They're sifting through log files, they're looking for vulnerabilities, they're looking for malicious traffic. They are really the front guards that are watching out of the fortress. I've always loved computers. I've always kind of been into making a computer do what I wanted it to do, whether it wanted to or not. And I'd have friends lose their passwords and I could get into the computer, and so it always appealed to me. And I just felt like it was a great direction to go. What appeals to me about being a security analyst is the use of technology, cutting-edge technology, to fight what is a growing problem that sometimes appears to not have a solution. Every little bit counts and everybody's contribution counts, and that's the only way that we're gonna fight against this. Some of the challenges of being a security analyst is just the sheer amount of data that must be organized and categorized and dealt with. The little pinpoint piece of data that's gonna tell you something is wrong is imperative, and that can easily slip by if you're not very, very on top of things. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had a paper route when I was a kid for many years. Then I worked in some restaurants in the kitchen, and then I waited tables for a little while. And I went to school in Oklahoma at Oklahoma State University. Then I went into the recording industry. I decided to move to Los Angeles, and I worked as a recording engineer and got into video editing, and did that for many years. Through a variety of circumstances, I decided to move back to Oklahoma, my hometown. And through that move, I sort of discovered that I wanted something a little bit more. The industry that I was working in existed primarily in Los Angeles, and it didn't exist as much in Oklahoma. When I got back here, I looked around and I saw classes were offered. I thought about going into programming and software development. I saw that cybersecurity was also an option. My years of working with computers and playing with computers and making them do what I want them to do, that was always enjoyable to me, and so I thought cybersecurity was probably the right direction to go. I initially got into it through a boot camp, through University of Oklahoma and Full Stack Academy. That gave me a decent foundation, gave me enough to go out and maybe be a little dangerous, and I decided that I wanted to further that before I really hit the job market, and one way to do that is to get a certification. So I got my Security Plus certification. Getting my CompTIA certification started with Professor Messer. He had a series on YouTube that was free, and I just dove headfirst and started listening and watching and taking notes. The further I got in, the more I realized just how much information was on this test and how big it was. And I plugged away, and I finally got through all of his videos on YouTube. One big plus that I had was that I had started a new exercise routine, and I could listen to the material while I was exercising, and that allowed me to review and review and review. And I really credit that to getting the knowledge into my head. I also had a couple of apps on my phone that would give you test questions, so I was constantly throughout the day always reviewing and looking at different questions and going back and trying to trick myself and hide them in different places to where I wouldn't remember answers, and go back so I'd have all that information just locked in as well as I could. And then finally it came time to take the test. I've got to get it done. There were concepts that I would know completely, and they would be different multiple choice answers, and I would be perfectly familiar with whatever it was. And the question itself would leave a little bit to your imagination. And so you had to figure out, is this situation or is this some other situation? It turns out in the end that I did do well, but I thought it was difficult and very, very challenging, which I think is good. If it were really, really easy, then what did I study all the time for? And when you get into the field, things are gonna be a little bit this way and a little bit that way, and nothing's gonna be completely cut and dry. And so you do have to make decisions, and you do have to decide one way or the other, this is what I need to do. I'm currently reviewing the material for the Network Plus because I feel like it's just good information to have, especially if you're going into security. I would like to use my Security Plus certification as a starting point to become an expert in that field. Beyond that, I'd like to go into networking and focus on that because I think those two go hand in hand. If someone's thinking about going into tech, a CompTIA certification is a great way to go because it's industry recognized, it defines your skill set, and it's challenging.